My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
Former FBI Director James Comey is remaining defiant and denied any wrongdoing after a federal grand jury indicted him on 2 charges related to his 2020 testimony to the Senate. The Justice Department accuses Comey of making false statements and obstruction. He could face up to 5 years in prison if convicted. The statute of limitations for the charges was set to expire next week, and the development marks a major escalation in President Trump's efforts to target his political opponents.
You can't let this go on. They are sick, radical left people, and they can't get away with it. And Comey was one of the people. He wasn't the biggest, but he's a dirty cop. He's always been a dirty cop.
CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman and CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane are following all of this for us. Scott, I want to begin with you. Thanks for joining us. A grand jury voted to indict Comey on 2 counts, but threw out a 3rd charge. Walk us through these charges and the significance of not prosecuting on the 3rd.
The 2 charges that went through, Meg, are false statement and obstruction, both involving his testimony 5 years ago this week at the U.S. Senate. He was investigated, and talking about the investigation into the 2016 election. The allegations are sparse in these charging documents, Meg. This is boilerplate language. No specific granular allegations are included. The Department of Justice may add those at a later date before this case goes towards a trial. The arraignment will happen October 9th, the federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia. James Comey has already professed his innocence, and his supporters have already argued that this is a political prosecution by a president who has pledged retribution and who declaratively asked his Department of Justice to file a criminal case against James Comey. It's a small case in stature right now. It's a brief charging document. These are small-level charges relative to federal crimes. But it's an enormously important case because critics say it is showing a firewall is dissolving that separates political considerations from Justice Department prosecutions.
And Scott, U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was the only one named on this case. Is that uncommon?
It's wildly uncommon for a U.S. attorney to put her name on a charging document and nobody join her or him in the process. What a tumultuous week this has been, Meg, inside the U.S. Department of Justice. Last weekend, the president made that Truth Social post calling for prosecutions of some of his political opponents. The prior U.S. attorney in Virginia was ousted by Trump. He wasn't moving forward with the cases. Lindsay Halligan, who you see there, a White House aide, was installed as the new interim U.S. attorney. And then just days later, there's a case against James Comey, and Lindsay Halligan's the only person putting her name on it. There's been one resignation in the Eastern District of Virginia prosecutor's office already because of this. There could be more in the days to come.
You mentioned October 9th. This is all going to go down. What happens from between now and then?
It's possible there are some challenges filed by Comey's defense, and his attorney is a famous name in legal circles, Patrick Fitzgerald, former U.S. attorney, former high-profile defense attorney in other Washington, D.C. cases. He was served the summons by an FBI agent last night. It's possible they make an argument that this case should be dismissed for any number of reasons. It's also possible, Meg, that the Justice Department comes back with what they call a superseding indictment, a new expanded charging document that puts some color behind these accusations, gets a little more detail-oriented with what they're saying here. That could happen before October 9th, too. There could be a booking photo taken of James Comey, but the feds prohibit the release of those images if they're taken.
All right, Scott MacFarlane with all those details. Thank you very much.
As much as I want to believe it, Comey's not going anywhere. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this channel. So let's get into this. So today I'm going to talk about a moment that could reshape the public's trust in the Justice Department, accountability, and presidential power. So let me go down here so I can read. So former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted on 2 felony charges, making a false statement to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding. His arraignment is scheduled for October 9th before U.S. District Judge Michael Nachmanoff, and this is going to be in Virginia. Now, on this, I want to tread lightly, because as much as James Comey should have been charged a long time ago, we knew that the Biden Justice Department would not file any charges against James Comey. And James Comey literally admitted that first he said he didn't, but he said he had a friend that he gave some information to take to the Washington Post or the New York Times, one of those. And so we know that he has been divulging classified information. And I believe it's classified information on the Hillary Clinton investigation and the Trump investigation. So why this matters to me, even though I think, like I said, you have to tread lightly on this, because, you don't want it to seem like the president is going after his political enemies, even though James Comey is one of his political enemies. But James Comey was also, I'm sorry to say, crooked. Once you go down that route, you become crooked. Now, we all know that the Russian collusion was a hoax. Well, in the beginning, this is what they said, and then we come to find out that it was all made up. It was a total lie. But yet, James Comey knew that this was a lie. He knew that the story wasn't real, but the FBI still spied on the Trump campaign. They still bugged his place and listened to what was going on. And they're saying that they were trying to intercept any Russian, interference or anything like that. So this is why I say it is because when Trump left office, you had Biden, and Biden didn't do anything. Merrick Garland was just, he was just one of the worst DOJs. And now you have Trump back in office. But when you go on record saying to prosecute, that's a problem, because the DOJ is supposed to work independently. Now, don't get me wrong. Trump is my man, and I stand by him all the way. People know this. I just think that you have to be careful on some of the things you do, because you're going to have the naysayers say, this is political revenge. The Trump is, and that dumb thing they use, Trump is a king. These people make me get on my nerves. But when you come out and you say that, and then a few days later, here's Comey getting indicted, yeah, that's serious problems. To me, that's a problem, because now and I'm not going to call it serious problems. I'm just going to say it is a problem, because now it looks like you're forcing them to prosecute somebody. And now James Comey attorneys can use that against the DOJ. Okay, even if the facts are there, you have to ask yourself, would I have been prosecuted if Trump didn't say what he said and put it on social media? So that's where the problem comes in at. And James Comey is 64 years old, and he served as the FBI director from 2013 to when did Trump get in? 2016, then he became 2007. So 2013 to 2017, and Andy McCabe, I think that's his name, McCabe, he is the man that said that the former director, James Comey, authorized him to leak out classified information. So, yeah, so it to me, this is serious. It should have been prosecuted a long time ago. James Comey should be in jail for his actions. I have to say that. But I don't know if it's going to be a successful prosecution, only because when you have the president posting that the DOJ needs to prosecute it, and a couple of days later that happens, it make it seem like the DOJ isn't independent, even though they work for the even though they work for the president and they represent the government on behalf of the president. The DOJ is supposed to be independent intellectually, so they cannot be persuaded in their actions. And that's where the problem is going to fall in at. This is why I said James Comey's going nowhere. James Comey's going to be right back home. And then he's going to say, see, I was innocent, when no, he was not innocent. He was guilty because he's been called out. The Inspector General got him. Andy McCabe said that he was directed by the former director of the FBI to leak out classified information. And so it's just going to be a win for for Comey and those losers. And it's going to probably now look like Trump, whenever they go after anybody else, it's just going to look like Trump is forcing them. And then when Trump say things like, there's more to come, shit. Don't do that. That should stay quiet, and you talk to your AG. Don't broadcast it, because if you broadcast it, it can be used against you. And so I hope that James Comey goes to jail, but like I said, I doubt it's going to happen.
Wow. I just read the indictment against James Comey, and it is bad. Not only is it weak in terms of evidence, it doesn't even really allege a crime. I mean, it charges a crime, but the facts that they include in this indictment that they say are what constitutes a crime does not. And that there's no chance that James Comey is going to be convicted of this. Not a chance in hell, even if it gets to trial, which it may not for a variety of reasons. It may be dismissed by the judge before it even gets to trial. But if it gets to trial, and who knows, Comey might demand a trial. He might not even try to have this thing dismissed, because there's no chance he's getting convicted. He might want his day in court. Perjury is a very difficult crime to prove, which is why it's seldom charged, because it is a specific intent crime. You can't just, it's not, what in the bloody hell was that?
How the mainstream media is reporting this is that Comey is indicted after pressure from the president. This is not about an indictment. This is not about an indictment. Now, I have the president of the United States commenting on this indictment. I have his reaction to that. I have James Comey, who actually released a selfie video dropping a bomb on all of this. But before we get to that, I just want to point out what Brett Meisler said here, because I just want to make sure we're super intentional about what is happening, and we are framing this in the right way. And I thought this was so smart, because as I said, the mainstream media is, I'm looking right now on my TV downstairs, says Comey expected to surrender tomorrow morning. This is not about Comey. This is not about an indictment. This is about the real story, which is that Comey is at the historic scandal of a president of the United States pressuring his Department of Justice to indict his political enemies. There's no need to mince words. This is one of the biggest scandals in American history.
I am so appalled at those that took an oath, at those that actually went to law school. Many of us ended up with law school debt. And then we have to take not only the bar exam, but we have an ethics exam that we have to take, because there is supposed to be some level of ethics in what we do when we go into a courtroom. Now you have people that literally either they just don't know the law or they just don't care. But the idea that you would go after someone, and listen, even as Democrats, we had our fair share of issues with James Comey, okay? But that's not a reason to prosecute someone. And so here's the deal. If he decides that he wants to continue down this path, I think that they're going to continue to lose. And I don't see the former FBI director saying that he is going to just go ahead and say enter into a plea deal, or he's just going to take this line down. I think that this is someone who absolutely will fight this to the end.
It is a really dark, sad, scary day for America, and that post that you just showed is truly petrifying. The President of the United States ordered criminal charges against an individual who happens to be a political adversary and a critic of him. And let's be clear about what's happening here. The president is singling out someone he just doesn't like.
What Donald Trump wants to do is sow fear throughout the country. He wants people to shut up. He wants people to go away. And we all need to stand up individually and collectively against this bullying. Look, this is a political prosecution, pure and simple. It's Exhibit A of the corruption of this Department of Justice and our justice system. And it comes in line with all the other lawless things President Trump is doing, cracking down on First Amendment rights, stripping people of their due process. I will just say that anybody who thinks we're on the way to authoritarianism is wrong. We are there. And these are all examples of it. And like James Comey said, we need to stand up.
Did Pam Bondi go to law school? You follow the facts before you indict someone for a crime. You do not indict them and say, well, now we got to go look for some facts. Her statement shows this thing is a complete political hatchet job. And I think it's going to blow up in the Trump administration's face, because having practiced law in the Eastern District of Virginia for 17 years, I don't see any of the judges in this district dignifying this political persecution in any way.
So see, that's my concern. You know, these losers will all come out and say what they have to say. And what are you going to do? Freedom of speech, they can say what they want to say. You know, I don't have to agree with it. However, they're going back to Trump posting, saying that, to basically prosecute James Comey. And I guess the president could say that if he has a discussion with his DOJ and they decide, let's do this, because the president job is to follow the law. He is the ultimate person when it comes to the law, especially in the United States. However, when you make that kind of comment online, it can be very tricky. And you have a judge that's Biden appointed judge. So that's where I think they're gonna really fall with this and really try to save James Comey, even though James Comey should have been in jail because he did commit those charges and the other charges that he did before that, especially lying to Congress about the involvement the FBI did with the Russian hoax and the FBI spying on Trump. So yeah, this case is going to be problems. And I'm not sure if they brought this case up because even though it might not go anywhere, which I doubt it will, James Comey now will be the first FBI director to be indicted. And so they wanted to say, oh, Trump, first president to be indicted, or whatever they want to say. James Comey will be the first FBI director to be indicted. Okay? But there are some people out there that feel like, you know, this is a win-win situation for the president.
So they indicted James Comey, huh? You know what, James? If you're looking for who to blame for this, go take a long look in the fucking mirror, buddy. This country is in the position it is because of you. You're the one that jumped in front of a camera and threw Hillary Clinton under the bus for no reason at all. It came out that she had done nothing wrong. But a week before the 2016 election, your ass jumped in front of all of those TV cameras and told the whole country that she was under FBI investigation. And you probably threw the election to Donald Trump, the same man that is now making sure your ass is getting indicted. Does it make it right? Of course it doesn't make it right. But does it mean that I'm not going to enjoy it? Hell no. I'm going to enjoy every second of this, James. You brought this shit on yourself. We saw with Merrick Garland that you ain't ever got to jump in front of a TV camera and tell anybody about any investigations. So enjoy the next year of your life, James, because you did it to yourself.
Well, the former director of the FBI, James Comey, has been charged with criminal offenses in a federal indictment out of the Eastern District of Virginia. Here's what we know so far. Apparently, prosecutors presented 3 charges to the grand jury, but the grand jury actually rejected one of those. That is exceedingly rare, especially in federal court. But the grand jury did find probable cause for 2 federal offenses. The first is 18 United States Code Section 1001, that is making a false statement to Congress. The second is a violation of 2 United States Code Section 192. That's a misdemeanor, obstruction of Congress. Both charges relate to his 2020 testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee about the FBI's investigation related to Russia's interference in the 2016 election. Now, the reason the charges were brought in the Eastern District of Virginia, the venue being that jurisdiction, is because in 2020 it was the pandemic, so he was testifying remotely from his home in that district. Venue could be challenged as a possible defense to these charges. And in terms of the more serious felony charge, the making false statements to Congress allegation, this requires willful intent and that the false statement be material. And so a possible defense would be that he did not knowingly or intentionally or willfully make a false statement. He believed the statement to be true, or it wasn't necessarily false nor material. What the government has to prove for the less serious misdemeanor charge is that he willfully refused to comply with a congressional subpoena, in that he refused to testify in some respect, or he refused to produce documents. His attorneys could also argue that this was a retaliatory or politically motivated or a selective prosecution that thereby violates his due process rights. And since the indictment was handed down so close to the expiration of the statute of limitations, that's the amount of time that the government has from when a crime allegedly occurs to the time that they indict. For these crimes, you have 5 years. And since his 2020 testimony was right at about 5 years ago, we could also see a motion to dismiss based on the statute of limitations as well. The felony false statement charge carries with it a penalty of up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine, whereas the misdemeanor charge carries with it a penalty of up to 12 months in prison and a $1,000 fine. We don't know what the third charge was that prosecutors presented and the grand jury rejected, but my guess is that it was probably something like perjury or false statements under oath, or something else related to the obstruction and false statements statutes. Don't expect the United States Marshals to go to James Comey's house at this point and arrest him. Rather, his attorneys have probably already coordinated with the prosecution on a time to come into court and have his initial appearance and set some conditions of his release. And then, of course, what's next is fighting the case. You litigate motions and you prepare for trial. But it's a very interesting indictment for a number of reasons, so stay tuned.
As for the reaction to all of this, the weeping and gnashing of teeth from the no one is above the law crowd could be heard around the world last night. If you've looked at any news sources today, you've heard the word unprecedented thrown around endlessly, which tells me that apparently nobody knows what the definition of that word actually is. But please, spare me the outrage over political prosecutions. For all of you who ever said, no one is above the law, or said that institutions of justice are sacred and cannot be questioned, or described Donald Trump as a 34 convicted felon, you know what I say? Choke on it. Just choke on it. Honestly, if you cheered the political prosecutions of Donald Trump on cases that were clearly novel and made up just for him, just for politics, choke on it. If you are lamenting today, whoa, this was 5 years ago, and yet you cheered on the criminalization of a liaison Trump had in 2006? Choke on it. If you're whining about the use of process to punish people, but you cheer the use of process to cripple Trump, the candidate, Trump, the president, and his people, choke on it. And if you're worried about revenge, let me ask you a simple question. Revenge for what? Exactly. Whatever do you mean? Please elaborate. Do tell what it looks like when the criminal justice systems are weaponized. Another word of the day, weaponized against political opponents. Listen to what a reporter on the South Lawn of the White House actually said to President Donald Trump today. Just listen to this.
President Trump, are you worried now that the next time there's a Democratic president, they will indict your FBI director or people in your administration?
That's what they tried to do, right? They did it with me for 4 years.
To be honest, that joke is funnier than any joke Jimmy Kimmel has told in the last 10 years. Now, Trump punted the question into the sun, as he should have. A good day for the rule of law? The rule of law endures. You know who said that? James Comey, the day that Trump was indicted. No whining about political prosecutions or weaponization or whatever. That's just what he said. Choke on it, is what I think. My view is very simple. Comey was indicted for lying by a grand jury through a normal process that produces indictments for a range of crimes across this country every single day. He'll go to court and he'll get a chance to defend himself. The case seems pretty simple. We don't need CSI Alexandria here to figure out the truth. He either lied or he didn't. And the simple evidence testimony will clearly back it up or it won't. But do not bemoan political prosecutions or whine about revenge or whatever today. Just don't. And for what it's worth, I don't hear a lot of people defending Comey on the substance of all this today. I hear fussing about all sorts of aspects of it, but is anyone out there actually defending him on the substance of the charges? I don't see much of that, which ought to tell you something. Everybody knows the DOJ, the FBI, and yes, dare I say, other elements of the deep state, leaked and still leaks like crazy against this president. You know that it happens. It was true when he started, and it is still true today. By the way, I'm not hearing enough Democrats thanking Donald Trump today. For what, you ask? I mean, is he not punishing the destructor of Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign? The dirty secret is if Hillary had won anyway, she would have fired Jim Comey on day one, and every person whining about this today would have been on TV cheering her on. Selective outrage, hypocrisy, shamelessness. You're getting it all today, America.
I love me some Scott Jennings. He's right. These were the same people that were saying no one's above the law, and yet they were breaking the law. So they're not above the law either. Especially somebody like James Comey, who was just horrible as FBI director. Okay, but I guess we can say that it was needed. I think this is probably a wake up call for a lot of them, especially the ones who know that especially people like Hillary Clinton, which I already said, they're not even going to go after that disgrace. Hillary Clinton will not be touched, and she should have been in jail a long time ago because she received a subpoena to save their to not do anything, keep their cell phone so that they can go through it. But instead, she went and destroyed it. Used a hammer to destroy it, and got every item on it deleted, so that way nobody could see what she was doing. I mean, that alone tells you how guilty you are. And I wasn't sure what James Comey was doing because you could tell he's not a Trump supporter. But at the same time, I wasn't sure if he was saying to himself, you know what, Trump is going to probably win. I need to play both sides. And I think that's what he was doing. But, Trump fired him. And I don't think the liberals even care if Comey went to jail or not. But they're going to use this to further their agenda, to say that Trump is after all of his political enemies, And like I said, Trump needs to stay off of social media when it comes to the DOJ, because the DOJ, regardless if they work on behalf of the President of the United States, they are supposed to be independent, have an independent mind, and they are supposed to, follow the evidence and determine what needs to be prosecuted and not. But when you get the president telling you something that can be seen as taint now, the decision making and everything was tainted because of the president of the United States. So Comey did say, what did Comey say? My family and I have known for years that there are costs for standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. What the hell is he talking about? So, standing up to Donald Trump, that makes no sense. Like, you guys weaponized the Justice Department. You spied in this campaign. You've had numerous amount of people get arrested. Peter Navarro and all the others. Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn was innocent. You set him up. And now you want to sit here and talk about there was a cost to standing up to Donald Trump? Give me a break. Oh my God. I don't know. So the indictment does raise urgent questions. Is this accountability? Which I feel like this is accountability, even if the president came out and said a few, basically demanded that James Comey be prosecuted, or could it be, I guess, a trust issue? Can we say that we believe in the Department of Justice if they're being told by somebody to prosecute somebody and then bam, you get prosecuted? Is that trust? I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but I want people, especially like the Charlie Kirk fans and conservatives and so forth, to stay engaged. We want to do everything in a peaceful manner, and we want to express ourselves, but let's use history, let's use the current law, and we can use that to our advantage so that we could get our message across. It's very important that we do. And let's not go after somebody because somebody said so. Okay? Let's go after them because it's the right thing to do. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. It is the right thing to do. So anyway, we are about to call it a day. I do thank you guys for listening to me as I talk about James Comey. I personally hope that he goes to jail. I hope he spends the entire 5 years, but he's not even going to spend 30 seconds. He's going to go, they're going to make an arraignment. He's probably going to take his picture and then he's going to be out the doors. And when he goes to court to defend himself, he's going to be out the doors. I promise you, shouldn't even be a long case. But on that note, you guys have a great day. Please remember, like, subscribe, and share this channel. Okay? And I will see you soon. Peace.